So if you missed the service this past Sunday, June the 6th, then this is a summary of what was shared in that service. As what we're wrestling through is, as a Christian, how do I respond to homosexuality and the whole community, LGBTQ? How do I respond to that as a Christian, as Jesus would? There's a couple of things to keep in mind. One is the idea of nuances, that there are shades of similar things where it's similar but it's not the same, and understanding that is a reality will help us know how to interact with the world on this issue, to make sure we're actually saying what we mean to say. And part of doing that is keeping in mind the things we've discussed so far, understanding the nature of lines, that if I'm unsure at all, that becomes a personal conviction and I can't cross that line. If somebody else crosses that line, it's okay. And I might interact with them in different ways to discuss that, but in the end, it's okay that they cross the line, versus a biblical mandate where it's clear, and we went over how to establish that, where it's clear that nobody should cross that line, and I can't cross that line, and nobody else should cross that line, and then that dictates how I'm supposed to interact with the people that are crossing that line, which gets into the second part of that message was a couple weeks ago, is how to deal with somebody is crossing a biblical mandate line, how to confront it, how it's supposed to be believers for the most part, and there's a way that we go about doing that confrontation. So we want that to be in the background as we move forward with dealing with the issue of the LGBTQ community. What we want to keep in mind, and this is a two-parter, next week hopefully we finish this out, is if we are the right person, we're going to be able to address this the right way. One of the things we need to be is aware of issues. There's a need to have general awareness. One of the things we need to be aware of is the nature of the conflict, as far as a biblical viewpoint on the conflict. Ephesians 6:12, and I might not give you all the references as always in the summary, so if you want the whole picture, go to the June 6th service and you'll get the entire picture. But Ephesians 12 says we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, which means that no human being is the bad guy. And in fact, Joshua 5, Joshua's encounter with the angel said he's not on their side or the other people's side, shows us also that with God and with people, there are no sides when it comes to humanity. There's not teams. It's not their team versus my team. So it's not the homosexual community versus the church. It's not atheist versus the church. It's not Muslims versus the church. There's no human being that is on an opposing team or is the bad guy. Now, does that mean that everybody behaves like they're on God's team? No, it doesn't. And that does not mean that we don't need to confront issues, draw boundaries, and resist different things. But there's a right way to go about that. And I need to be aware that I shouldn't, because if my perception is someone in the homosexual community or any community that is in a not right relationship with Jesus Christ, if my approach to them is they are the bad guy, they're on the bad team, it's going to come across, and what it's going to look like is I'm coming to oppose you, and that's not going to give us the outcome that we want. And that's part of the nuance struggle, is we often think about making sure that we don't cross the line, trying to get other people to not cross the line, and trying to make sure that I don't affirm crossing the line. But we don't think about the way I go about this. Am I maintaining an ability to influence this person to accept Jesus Christ and to leave their lifestyle of sin. And that's something we need to consider, because we might be going about this the wrong way. We might be accomplishing the not crossing the line scenario, but we're not accomplishing influence in other people's lives. And I think that all of us would likely agree, and God would affirm this, that we should want to try to influence people to accept Christ and to leave a lifestyle of sin. So we have to be aware that we have this tendency to place people on opposing teams and make it a conflict with a person or people group, rather than it's a conflict with the enemy and with sin. These are things that we have to be alert to. We also need to be alert to the nature of the conflict. And the Bible calls us to be aware, alert, in a general sense. And so this would include this, that we need to be aware that those that are in the LGBTQ, I'm just going to say the homosexual community, I keep butchering the order of those words. Those who are in the homosexual community, what happened was, at some point in the past, I want to say it was the 80s, I might be off, some point in the past, there was a transition from homosexual behavior and identity being private versus public. So it wasn't that we transitioned to where it was happening, it wasn't happening and now it is. It was private, and then it became public, and it became a political issue. And that surfaced somewhere around the 80s. And the reason why that surfaced was because of the mistreatment of people who were either discovered to be gay, and I know that some of these terms are outdated and they change regularly, and there's other terms, but they were discovered to be that, or they were assumed to be that, and then they were hindered from acquiring housing, a job, they were insulted, they were mistreated, they were physically assaulted, sometimes even killed, because of their homosexuality. And that certainly isn't Jesus's desire for us to approach that sin issue that way, but it was. And the gay rights movement really started as a human rights movement, and so there's part of the movement that we would say we agree with, that people shouldn't be treated that way despite their sin behaviors. But it eventually progressed into other things. Because it was so close in time to the racial justice movement, which was really centered around that it was a sense of identity. And African American is that, and they were born that way, and there's nothing they could do about that. Because there were similarities between the race movement and the gay rights movement, the gay rights movement kind of picked up some things that maybe didn't belong to it in a mistaken way. I don't know if it was intentional to misunderstand, but that's why in the gay rights movement, many people in that movement or supportive of that movement see it as an identity issue, something you're born with. And we want to understand that, because we could very easily, in our confrontation of sin, and we might say the right words, but because we're not saying it the right way or explaining things enough, the perception is that you are for mistreating people, bullying people, and you are opposed to them as a person. You are attacking them and not just their lifestyle. That's the way it's received, and we need to be aware of that if we're going to communicate this well. Which bullying did come from the anti-bullying programs in schools, for the most part, are driven by the gay rights movement, and often will include a lot of that in there. And we want to be aware of that, not so that we can oppose the bullying program, but just know, like if you have children, know what's going to be there. And we want to be careful not to oppose a bullying program in a way that, again, gives the impression that we are for bullying. A Christian shouldn't be for bullying, but also shouldn't be for the homosexual lifestyle either. So there needs to be a way to make sure that we're not communicating the thing we don't intend on communicating. We also want to understand that those in the gay rights movement see themselves as a persecuted group, or at least did at some point in history. So when the church and conservatives and others began to resist the gay rights movement, it only affirmed that they are a persecuted people group. And being aware of that's going to help us know how to interact with this correctly. Also, that they are a mixed bag, that not everybody in the homosexual community has the same political views, is against religious freedom, is you must accept this lifestyle, is for gay marriage. Not everybody is on the same page, just like Christians aren't always on the same page. Is same with the homosexual community. Now, the church responded a certain way when this happened, and so part of the history is the church and those in the homosexual community need to understand, if we're ever going to get this resolved to some extent, needs to understand that us Christians are, in general, now we're a mixed bag also, and so there's plenty of I want to say plenty of Christians that are more on the fleshly side, or not exhibiting biblical viewpoints, behaviors, attitudes. So we're a mixed bag also. So you might get, a poor scenario somewhere, maybe in multiple places. So we're a mixed bag also. But a good amount of Christians, their motivation is wanting to be faithful to Jesus Christ and wanting to be faithful to the Bible. It's not because they hate you or want to attack you or want to take away your rights or want to bully you. It's that they're trying to be faithful to Jesus Christ and to the Bible. And there needs to be an understanding of each other if we're ever going to be able to resolve some of this conflict. We're probably never going to agree entirely, but to at least bring some peace and some understanding and some ability to work together in society by understanding where each other's coming from. Also, Christians were very concerned about their freedom, particularly religious freedom, being taken away. This feeds into us as Christians know that the Bible says there will be persecution, so we're kind of always on the lookout for it, and sometimes we get suspicious of things when maybe it's not actually persecution that's coming at us. But because we have been persecuted throughout history and we are concerned about that, when we feel it's coming, whether it's correct or not, if we feel that it's coming, we're going to want to fight against that. We're going to have a certain emotional response to that, just like those in the homosexual community would if they're feeling they're being persecuted. We also have a tendency to be concerned about worldliness and falling prey to the enemy, which is reasonable because that is a real thing that's there. So sometimes we're going to react to things in strong concern because of that nature. And us as Christians need to know that sometimes what we end up thinking is a villain or is worldly isn't. And we need the Bible to help us bring clarity to that, and we need to be open to reason and honest. And like I said already, we're a mixed bag as well. So these are things that we need to keep in mind, and I think that we will go a long way in knowing how to, as Christians, influencing people to come to know Christ and leave lifestyles of sin if we understand and are alert to what's happening. That makes us better communicators. And besides, the desired outcome should not be to win an argument, to win a culture war, to win politics, or to prove someone wrong, or to defeat someone, or to make sure that you were right. The desired outcome should be right relationships with Jesus Christ. That should be the desired outcome. No matter how we get there, that should be the desired outcome. So if you have any questions on what I had said in this video or in the June 6th service, please let me know. You can leave those in comments. If you have my number, you can contact me, you can text me, email me, you can Facebook message me. I can be found on Facebook Messenger. You can Facebook message the church. I'll be glad to answer any of your questions that you have, or if you have some feedback on these ideas, please leave that in comments. Please like the video if you like it. Share it with somebody else if you think that it'll be beneficial. I think that this would be beneficial to a number of people on either side of this conflict to hear. So I encourage you to share it with somebody. And the more you do that, the more visible it makes this video and the content of this video available. If you'd like to be notified when new content is available on the page, if you're on Facebook, just follow our page. If you're on YouTube, just subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button, and you'll be notified the next time a new video is uploaded. God bless you.